What's up, Broncos country? Welcome into another edition of BroncoTlk, where we talk Denver Broncos football. I'm here recapping week 2 between the Pittsburgh Steelers visiting the Denver Broncos, and it didn't go exactly how I had pictured it. I gave you guys a pre-game prediction of 23-10. I felt very strongly about that score all week long, but that was predicated on a different offensive play calling. I certainly laid out what I would have done in my pregame video, really relying on neutralizing TJ Watt and the pass rush. It's not one-man wrecking ball over there in Pittsburgh, but certainly a big defensive playmaker over in Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. You want to neutralize their biggest weapon. That being said, I would have done a lot of run strong side away from TJ Watt. I would have done a lot of screen plays, swing routes, and option routes out of the backfield, which seems to be a great strategy for both Bo Nix, for the type of offense that we have, and for Sean Payton, in addition to the strategy that would be most effective against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We simply didn't see that. There was a drive, I believe it was late in the third quarter, that started that way, and then we got towards midfield, and I just about plus side of the field, but got called for, I believe, consecutive holding calls, and then it was just, it was a nullified drive due to those penalties. But that's where you want to see Bo Nix operate. You want to see the swing routes. You want to see the screen passes against very aggressive defenses, because then that'll allow the Bo Nix to have time. Because once we implement that strategy, then the defense is going to back off, and you've got more time to scan the field and potentially use Bo Nix's legs. That offensive play calling, that scheme did not come to fruition today. So the Broncos ended up losing 13-6, and one big piece of decision making that I didn't agree with necessarily with Sean Payton was in that last 4-minute drive. We hadn't scored a touchdown all game, and as far as I'm concerned, you're going to need a field goal. Whether you miraculously get an onside kick or stop the Steelers from driving and you end up with the ball with 8 seconds left, however that ends up shaking out, you're going to need 10 points. And more likely than not, you're going to be shooting for the end zone on one and kicking a field goal on the other. Well, the Broncos got within Will Lutz's range at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and then they ran another play, and I think there was 2:25 left, and they had a first down, could have very well clocked it and kicked the field goal. And although that's not a great strategy, considering when you have a well-implemented offense or somebody that might put it in the end zone at any point of time, but the Broncos haven't. And at that point, 1 3/4 and almost 2 full games, the Broncos have not put it in the end zone. So when I was watching the game, I was shouting for us to get the field goal, get the field goal, because earlier in the game, if you remember, I think it was beginning of the second half, towards the very first possession of the second half for Denver, Bo Nix called a timeout. Something I noticed from today's game is the Broncos were breaking huddle at home with about 10 seconds left on the play clock, and that's kind of unnerving as a Broncos fan when you've got the history of having to help the coaches on the field and Russell Wilson by chanting, which I never got the opportunity to, but chanting the play clock time, 3, 2, 1, just to see it expire, call an early timeout, or whatever the case, start the play without even being really ready. And that kind of seemed to be the case in a couple of plays today, but mostly just feeling hurried. And for a rookie quarterback to feel hurried, that's already going to set his clock to move fast. And I think that's a lot of what the problem is in Denver on the offensive side of the ball. Rookie Bo Nix is playing too fast. The game hasn't slowed down for him yet, which goes back to, and I wanted to do this video in my Oregon Ducks number 10 jersey and an Oregon Ducks hat, but this is Bronco talk. I'm trying to watch Broncos games and give you guys my honest opinion, but I truly love everything that Bo Nix did in Denver. But the problem with a rookie quarterback is the game has to slow down for him. The CJ Strouds, the Andrew Lucks, the quarterbacks that came out of college, started right away and saw immediate success, they're the anomalies. They're the exception to the rule. They're not the rule. Regardless if you've played 6 or 61 college games, started 61 college games, and it's not going to matter when you get to the NFL, because although it's the same game, the players that you're playing against are the elite of the elite, and they're just moving faster. There's different schemes. The coaches have been doing it for much longer, or it's just different the way that the NFL is set up compared to the college game. And that was my problem with the preseason, was Bo Nix played one series against starters. And in vanilla defenses, and he went 2 for 6 with a fumbled snap. When the game was moving as fast as the other 21 players on the field move, Bo Nix was not up to speed. Now, when he was playing backups and third stringers, same level of competition that he was probably seeing at Oregon, if we're being completely honest, the same level of competition paired with vanilla defenses, of course he's going to be successful. Of course he's going to be the second coming of John Elway. Of course he's going to look like CJ Stroud in a Broncos uniform. But that wasn't the case. The reality of the situation is that Bo Nix played one preseason series against starters and looked average at best. And a lot of pundits and other people outside of BroncoTlk were saying butterflies and of course the Rook's going to be nervous. You got to get him one series under his belt. But then there was nothing else to be said for as far as facing starting competition. I know that Green Bay had joint practices and brought their starters, and there was a lot of reports of how great Bo Nix looked in camp and against that joint practice, or in that joint practice against the Packers. But practice is practice. When you've got 50,000, 70,000, 90,000 screaming fans, and that was another thing that I didn't expect. I know Pittsburgh's traveled well, and I remember back in it was like 2011. I can't quite remember, but Pittsburgh showed up in our stadium and was pretty loud. And I thought I'd never see that again, with the way that Broncos country was adamant about never letting Pittsburgh invade Denver at home again. And today there was a lot of Steelers fans, so that played a little bit into it. When TJ Watt in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, is hyping up the crowd in an opposing stadium, that's something that you don't want to see. And especially as Broncos fans, that kind of got me a little bit hot under the collar for sure. I was pretty heated, and a couple of things got me heated. In 2 weeks, we've seen Bo Nix throw 2 red zone interceptions, and he's 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns passing. That just can't happen. When I was advocating for Jarrett Stidham starting, it's not because I think that Bo Nix is a failure. I looked at the schedule, and I think that starting the season with 4 defensive-minded head coaches that are going to throw the kitchen sink at the rookie quarterback that played 61 NCAA football games but hasn't started, obviously, an NFL game, it's a big deal. And you're going to see defenses press Bo Nix until he proves that he can make a quick decision and operate this offense. And with Sean Payton's lingo, the verbiage is long-winded, and it's getting us out of the huddle with 10 seconds left on the play clock. You can't make any adjustments. Not that Bo Nix is going to be up there audibling, hot routing, and doing a whole bunch of cadence work and all of the things and nuances that go on with being a prolific quarterback, a field general of sorts. But he's got to be able to look up at the safeties and see, okay, we're in too high safety. We're in looks like they're running quarters. Whatever the case, he hasn't had enough time to barely recognize what they have or even compare it to, in his head, the film that he's seen throughout the week. He's got 10 seconds to break in the huddle. By the time he's seeing the safeties, 6 seconds, if he's got a motion, the play's dead. And we saw it, I think it was late in the first half, maybe early in the second half, where very similar situation happened, and we got to the line probably ready with 4 seconds left, and it was third and 4, and I know it was 3rd and 1, and Javonte Williams was handed the ball, and it was a 4-yard loss. If I remember the situation correctly, it's like we have to get out of that play, but there's no time to make any calls at the line. Nothing can be done with the way that the team's being ran offensively right now, as far as with the personnel, with the head coach calling the plays that he is, and with respect to Sean Payton, I think he's a great head coach. But the first couple of games, he's never coached a rookie quarterback. He's always operated with a starting caliber quarterback, somebody that's been a starting quarterback or a backup quarterback for a significant amount of time, where the game has slowed down for them. So they're able to get in and out of the huddle. They're able to kill a play and get onto the more simple play or something that's going to work better against the defense that they're recognizing. But when you've got a rookie quarterback, you almost got to spoon feed him everything. And Sean Payton, as we saw last year with Russell Wilson, isn't into spoon feeding. And of course, he's protecting the kid. He's going to continue to say that we've got to play better around the rook, and that Greg Dulcich can't drop passes. But on the flip side, you look at Greg Dulcich, and in slow motion, it looked like, and even for me in the live feed, when he dropped that pass over the middle, he was starting to look towards the defender because he could hear footsteps, and he doesn't trust the rook. He's not going to get him decapitated yet. And that's just a level of confidence that comes with the Jarrett Stidham, with a Zach Wilson, who's got several, Zach Wilson's on the 20-plus side of NFL starts, but Jarrett Stidham's been in the league for 4, 5, 6 years, where he's not going to get a player decapitated, at least at this point in his career. He's a 4th rounder. Jarrett Stidham is a 4th rounder and may have had his struggles in the past, but at this point in the season, for me, I still go back to it made more sense to start the year with Jarrett Stidham, get through the gauntlet of defensive-minded head coaches that we start the season with. So I fully expect Todd Bowles and Robert Saleh to run the gauntlet and just keep pounding against the offensive line, exotic looks, blitzes, just different packages that are going to confuse Bo Nix, and he's going to continue to have to make the play. Probably with his legs, it's not going to come easy for the rook. And we'll see. I thought we were going to get towards midseason. I circled that New Orleans Saints game with Sean Payton going back to New Orleans on a Thursday night as a game that's going to have a lot of implications, whether or not, we were starting Jarrett Stidham and we were making a move to Bo Nix, or just the fact that Sean Payton's going back to New Orleans and he's going to want to get that win. So I circled that on my calendar, but through 2 games, we've got the Saints just totally mollywhopping anybody that steps in front of them. And that's including a very high, I thought, if Dak Prescott got his contract, because I thought that was potentially a situation that was going to be very distracting throughout the year, but Dak got his contract, they flipped the coin on week 1 and had him sign at the same time. It wasn't that dramatic, but it was pretty close. I think it was the day of the game he got his extension, and when he got his extension, I was like, okay, that's out of the way. Dallas is going to have a good team this year, and they don't have very much competition, especially after week 1 when Jordan Love went down, and just to see the NFC not as weak, but as Dallas is strong enough to compete and be an upper echelon team in the NFC, but New Orleans ran right through them. And if New Orleans, which they are at home week 7, I believe it is, the Broncos are gonna have a little bit of a struggle going into New Orleans. So I don't know. And that's another defensive-minded head coach, Dennis Allen. So we've got pretty much the rookie having to go through his first NFL season, baptism by fire. At this point, I don't want to see the Broncos do what the Dolphins did with Tua, where they put Ryan Fitzpatrick in, they put Tua in, they flip-flopped him. You could pretty much do a shotgun pistol formation and, hey, no, you throw it, no, you throw it. I mean, like I said, it wasn't that to that extent, of course, but it was pretty much like who's in on this drive, who's in on that drive. It got pretty interesting there in Miami, and I just want to see Bo Nix pass the eye test. for me, the game's moving too fast for him. He can't read the defense, and for what it's worth, we're playing some tough-minded, defensive-minded head coaches, and I just don't see us coming out the other side of this any better than we went in. So, also on the defensive front, we've lost Baron Browning, John Franklin Myers, and it looked like there was one more injury on the defense before halftime. And it's just, injuries are going to happen. We feel like we have depth across the board. We felt like us definitely on the offensive side of the ball, we had some depth, and injuries are hitting the offensive side. We had Audric Estime go down and Devon Vele go down, and we'll see how the season progresses. We're definitely going to have to use that depth on both sides of the ball. But another unexcusable thing is Pat Surtain. For the first couple of years of Pat Surtain's career in Denver, he could do no wrong. And now week 1 and week 2, PS2 is holding, pass interference calls getting called against him. We need to clean it up across the board. If not, there might be some heads that roll. I don't know if Sean Payton's ever going to see the hot seat this year. I certainly don't think so. But he could use Vance Joseph as a scapegoat, and he's already got a defensive coordinator waiting in the wings. So if we don't ramp up the sack total or get some turnovers, we'll see. I'm not trying to put anybody on the hot seat after 2 weeks, especially where I'm sitting. I called 23-10 Denver. Pittsburgh scored 13 points. As much as Vance Joseph got the brunt of my verbal repertoire when he was our head coach, and even through the first handful of games last year, he held the Steelers, who I don't think are a prolific offense by any means, but he held them to 13 points, and that first half was pretty sketchy, if you ask me. There could have been 13 to 17 points scored in the first half, but for some reason we were able to etch out a 10-point first half and a 3-point second half, and they played really strong. If you put the first half of Seattle's game with us again and the second half of Pittsburgh's game with us, you've got two halves of football where the defense played lights out. So I'm not saying I want to see Vance Joseph's head roll. I'm not saying that I want to see quarterbacks coaches or offensive coaches get any brunt of the punishment, but it's hard to say that Sean Payton at this point in his coaching career is going to be on the hot seat after one season and 2 games. This is just not going to happen. But a little dejected here at BroncoTlk. I saw a lot better coming for our second game of this season. I certainly felt like we were going to win, and that also led me to believe that we were going to beat the Jets week 4. I don't see the Jets as a strong enough team to where you could just write the Broncos off in week 4, especially I believe the strategy's already been put out there that we expect to stay East Coast for after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. We're just going to stay East Coast and not have to make that time change happen twice in 2 weeks. So with that plan, I saw us going into the Jets, going into New York and beating the Jets in week 4 and starting the season in the best case scenario 2-2 against 4 really great defensive coaches. So it's obviously not going to happen unless we win the next 2. Hopefully we're able to fix some things offensively, stop dropping the ball, and kind of get into some rhythm. And if we get into some rhythm, I think that will definitely help the young buck get his game right against the Bucs and possibly keep it rolling against the Jets. I'm always going to hold out hope. I don't necessarily agree with the decision to start the Rook in his first year. I see a lot of potential that Jarrett Stidham could have put on the field and really got us to a 1-1 or 2-0 start to our season. But that's not where we stand. So as it is now, let's just keep rolling, trying to find what works for Bo so that he can be the future of the Denver Broncos. If you haven't already and you liked this video, please do me a favor and like and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel so we can continue to stampede through the season together all year long. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next vid.